The radio crackled to life in the forward operating base nestled deep in the mountains of Afghanistan. Staff Sergeant Mike Rodriguez grabbed the handset, expecting another routine patrol update from his Rangers deployed along the ridge line. Instead, what he heard made him pause mid-sip of his lukewarm coffee. "Base, this is Alpha Team. We've got movement on the eastern slope, approximately 800 meters out. Visual confirmation of hostile forces, but..." The voice of Corporal James Mitchell trailed off, replaced by the distinctive crack of rifle fire echoing through the valley. "Alpha Team, report your status," Rodriguez barked into the radio, his years of combat experience telling him something was different about this engagement. "Sir, you're not going to believe this. We've got someone out there taking shots at the insurgents, but it's not one of ours. Rangefinder puts the shooter at nearly 1,000 meters, and whoever it is, they're dropping targets with surgical precision." Rodriguez felt his stomach tighten. Unauthorized civilians in the combat zone meant complications, potential friendly fire incidents, and a whole lot of paperwork if they survived. But what Mitchell said next stopped him cold. "Base, I'm looking through my scope right now. The shooter appears to be..." "Jesus, sir, it looks like a kid. Maybe 16, 17 years old. And, sir, it's a girl." The forward operating base fell silent except for the hum of generators and the distant sound of helicopter rotors. Rodriguez had served 3 tours in Afghanistan, had seen child soldiers, had witnessed the horrors that war inflicted on the innocent. But a teenage girl engaging enemy combatants at nearly impossible ranges? That was something entirely different. "Mitchell, are you certain about what you're seeing?" Rodriguez demanded, already reaching for his gear. "Affirmative, sir. She's positioned on a rocky outcrop about 600 meters from our location. Local dress, but definitely armed with what appears to be a modified hunting rifle. Sir, she just took down another insurgent. That's 3 confirmed kills in the last 2 minutes." Rodriguez's mind raced. The eastern slope had been a persistent problem for weeks. Insurgents used the high ground to harass supply convoys and launch attacks on coalition patrols. Intelligence suggested a well-fortified position with at least a dozen fighters. Now someone was engaging them single-handedly, and that someone was barely old enough to drive back home. "Alpha Team, maintain your position and observe. Do not engage the unknown shooter unless she fires on coalition forces. I'm sending Bravo Team to investigate." As Rodriguez assembled his response team, reports continued streaming in over the radio. The mysterious sniper was methodically working her way through the insurgent position. Each shot was deliberate, precise, and deadly. No spray and pray, no suppressive fire. Just clean, surgical eliminations that spoke to training far beyond her apparent age. Lieutenant Sarah Chun, the base's intelligence officer, appeared at Rodriguez's elbow with a tablet full of satellite imagery. "Sergeant, I've been monitoring the situation through our Overwatch drone. The insurgent position we've been tracking for 3 weeks is being systematically dismantled. Whoever this shooter is, she knows exactly where each target is positioned." Rodriguez studied the real-time footage. The thermal imaging showed the heat signatures of insurgents scrambling for cover as their numbers dwindled. One by one, the hostile contacts disappeared from the screen. Not retreating, but eliminated. The precision was unlike anything he had seen outside of elite military sniper teams. "How is this possible?" Chen muttered, zooming in on the lone figure positioned on the rocky outcrop. "Look at her firing position. Perfect line of sight, natural wind cover, multiple escape routes. This isn't luck or accident. Someone taught her how to do this." The radio crackled again. "Base, this is Alpha Team. The shooting has stopped. Visual confirmation shows the unknown shooter is moving. Wait, she's standing up. Sir, she's waving at us." Rodriguez grabbed his binoculars and rushed outside. Even from the base's position, he could make out the small figure on the distant ridge. She stood confidently on the rocks, rifle slung across her back, one hand raised in what appeared to be a casual greeting. The audacity of it struck him speechless. "Mitchell, what's the status on the insurgent position?" "Base, we're showing no movement, no return fire, nothing. Best estimate is 8 to 10 hostiles down. The position appears completely neutralized." Rodriguez felt a chill that had nothing to do with the mountain air. In his 3 tours, he had never seen a single shooter take down an entire insurgent cell. Navy SEALs, Delta Force, the most elite snipers in the military worked in teams and relied on extensive support. Yet somehow, a teenager with a hunting rifle had accomplished what would have required a full platoon assault. "Sir," Chin said quietly, "we need to find out who she is. This level of skill doesn't develop in a vacuum. Someone trained her, and if there are more like her out there." Rodriguez nodded grimly. The implications were staggering. A network of highly trained civilian snipers could change the entire dynamic of the conflict. But first, they needed to make contact with this mysterious girl who had just eliminated a threat that had been plaguing them for weeks. "Prep a patrol," he ordered. "We're going up there to have a conversation. And Chun, run every database we have access to. I want to know everything about hostile sniper activity in this region for the last 6 months." As his team prepared to move out, Rodriguez couldn't shake the image of that small figure standing confidently on the ridge, waving as if she had just finished a casual afternoon of target practice rather than a life-and-death engagement with seasoned insurgents. Who was she? Where did she come from? And, most importantly, whose side was she really on? The answers to those questions would prove more complex and dangerous than Rodriguez could possibly imagine. The patrol made its way up the treacherous mountain path in tactical formation, each ranger scanning for threats while processing what they had witnessed. Rodriguez led from the front, his weapon ready but not aimed, hoping to project strength without immediate hostility. Behind him, Corporal Mitchell and for other experienced soldiers moved with the practiced efficiency of men who had survived multiple combat deployments. As they climbed higher, the evidence of the girl's deadly accuracy became impossible to ignore. Rodriguez paused beside the first body, a bearded man in traditional Afghan dress clutching an AK-47. The single bullet hole in the center of his forehead told a story of precision that made Rodriguez's skin crawl. No military sniper in his unit could have made this shot more cleanly. "Range to the shooter's position?" he asked Mitchell, who was studying the angle with his rangefinder. 940 meters, sir. Uphill shot, accounting for wind drift and elevation. This is textbook long-range engagement. They found 7 more bodies as they approached the insurgent position. Each kill was clinical, professional, and executed with minimal ammunition expenditure. No double taps, no wasted shots. Every bullet had found its mark with surgical precision. Rodriguez had served alongside Marine Scout snipers and Army Rangers. What he was seeing rivaled their best work. "Movement ahead," whispered Specialist Torres from the point position. 200 meters, behind the large boulder. Rodriguez signaled for the patrol to spread out and take cover. Through his binoculars, he could see a small figure sitting calmly on a flat rock, rifle propped against her knee, apparently waiting for their arrival. She looked exactly as Mitchell had described. Young, dressed in local clothing, but carrying herself with the confidence of someone much older. "Unknown shooter, this is United States Army," Rodriguez called out in Pashto, his voice carrying across the rocky terrain. "We need to speak with you." The girl stood slowly, hands visible, rifle remaining pointed at the ground. When she responded, her voice carried clearly despite the distance, speaking accented but fluent English. "I have been waiting for you, Sergeant. My name is Zaria. I know you have questions." Rodriguez felt his team tense behind him. How did she know his rank? How did she know they were coming? And where had a teenage Afghan girl learned to speak English with such precision? "We're going to approach slowly," he called back. "Keep your weapon lowered." As they closed the distance, Rodriguez got his first clear look at the mysterious sniper. She appeared to be 16 or 17 years old, with dark hair pulled back under a worn headscarf and intelligent brown eyes that seemed far older than her face. Her clothes were typical of rural Afghan women, but her rifle was anything but typical. The weapon appeared to be a heavily modified Remington 700, with custom optics and modifications that would have cost thousands of dollars. "You eliminated the insurgent cell," Rodriguez said, stopping 10 meters away. "How?" Zaria tilted her head slightly, studying each member of the patrol with the calm assessment of a professional soldier. "They have been attacking your convoys for many weeks. They killed innocent people from my village when they retreated after striking your forces. Someone needed to stop them. Where did you learn to shoot like that?" Mitchell asked, his voice betraying his amazement. A shadow crossed Zaria's face. My father taught me. He was trained by your special forces during the Soviet War. After the Russians left, he continued fighting. When the Taliban came to power, he taught me everything he knew before they killed him. Rodriguez felt pieces of a larger puzzle clicking into place. During the 1980s, American CIA operatives had indeed trained Afghan Mujahideen fighters to exceptional standards. Some of those fighters had become legendary for their marksmanship skills. If this girl's father had been one of them, why help us? Rodriguez asked carefully. You could have let the insurgents continue their attacks. Zaria's expression hardened. Because they are not fighting for Afghanistan. They are fighting for power, for money, for the chance to hurt innocent people. My father fought for freedom. These men fight only for themselves. Lieutenant Chin's voice crackled through Rodriguez's earpiece. Sergeant, you need to see the intelligence I've pulled up. I'm tracking a pattern of insurgent casualties over the last 6 months that matches what we just witnessed. Rodriguez keyed his radio discreetly. How many incidents? At least 12 confirmed, possibly more. Single shooter, extreme range, surgical precision. Every incident involved insurgent cells that had been targeting civilian areas or supply lines. Sir, if this girl has been operating alone for 6 months, she's eliminated more high-value targets than our entire sniper division. Rodriguez studied Zaria with new respect and growing concern. A lone teenage girl conducting a 6-month campaign against insurgent forces was either the most remarkable ally they could hope for, or the most dangerous wild card in the entire theater of operations. Zaria, he said slowly, we need to talk. Not here, not in the open. Too many people might be watching. She nodded, shouldering her rifle with practiced ease. There is a place. An old compound 2 kilometers north. My father used it as a safe house during the war with Russia. We can speak freely there. As the patrol prepared to move, Rodriguez couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking into something much larger than a chance encounter with a skilled local shooter. Zaria moved with the confidence of someone who knew every rock and shadow in these mountains, someone who had turned this hostile terrain into her personal hunting ground. Sir, Mitchell said quietly as they began walking, look at her gear. That optic alone costs more than most people here make in 5 years. Someone is funding her operation. Rodriguez had noticed the same thing. The rifle modifications, the high-end optics, the professional-grade camouflage netting he could see in her makeshift position, none of it came cheap. Either Zaria had access to resources far beyond what a village girl should possess, or she was part of a much larger organization. As they made their way across the rocky terrain, Zaria moved with the fluid grace of someone who had spent years navigating these mountains. She frequently paused to scan the horizon through a pair of expensive binoculars, checking routes that Rodriguez's trained eye recognized as classic counter-surveillance patterns. How long have you been watching us? He asked during one of these pauses. Since you established your forward base 6 weeks ago, she replied matter-of-factly. I know your patrol schedules, your vehicle routes, the positions of your sentries. I have been waiting for the right time to make contact. Rodriguez felt a chill run down his spine. If Zaria had been observing them for 6 weeks without detection, gathering detailed intelligence on their operations, what did that say about their security procedures? And, if she could do it, who else might be watching? The old compound appeared ahead of them, a cluster of mud brick buildings nestled against a cliff face that provided natural protection from observation. As they approached, Rodriguez realized that this was no abandoned ruin. Someone had been maintaining the site, keeping it ready for use. Solar panels glinted from one rooftop, and he could see the telltale signs of recent habitation. Welcome to my home, Zaria said simply, leading them through a reinforced gate that looked far more sophisticated than its weathered exterior suggested. Inside the compound, Rodriguez and his team discovered something that defied every assumption they had made about their young guide. The main building had been converted into what could only be described as a professional intelligence operations center. Maps covered the walls, marked with detailed notations in multiple languages. Computer equipment hummed quietly in one corner, powered by the solar array they had glimpsed outside. But it was the weapons cache that made Mitchell whistle low under his breath. Rifle cases lined one wall, each containing precision instruments that represented decades of technological advancement. Night vision equipment, range-finding devices, and communication gear worth hundreds of thousands of dollars filled military-grade storage containers. "This is impossible," whispered Specialist Torres, staring at a satellite communication array that would have been cutting edge in their own base. "How does a teenage girl in rural Afghanistan acquire equipment like this?" Zaria moved to a large table where detailed topographical maps were spread out, each marked with colored pins representing different types of targets. Red pins marked insurgent positions that had been eliminated. Blue pins showed current threats under surveillance. Yellow pins indicated civilian areas that needed protection. "My father left me more than just shooting skills," she said, running her finger along a mountain pass marked with multiple red pins. "He left me a network, resources, and, most importantly, a mission." Rodriguez studied the maps, recognizing immediately that this was intelligence gathering at a level that rivaled their own military operations. The level of detail, the accuracy of the positioning data, the systematic tracking of enemy movements. It spoke to years of careful observation and professional training. "Who else is involved?" he asked directly. "This isn't a one-person operation." Zaria smiled for the first time since they had met her. But it was not the expression of a teenager. It was the calculating smile of someone who had been waiting for exactly this question. "There are 12 of us," she said simply. "All daughters of Mujahideen fighters who were trained by your people during the Soviet War. When our fathers were killed by the Taliban or later by various insurgent groups, we inherited not just their weapons, but their knowledge and their contacts." She moved to another map, this one showing a much larger area covering 3 provinces. Pins of different colors marked locations across hundreds of square kilometers, creating a pattern that Rodriguez recognized as a coordinated intelligence network. "For 5 years, we have been tracking the movements of groups that threaten innocent people. Taliban commanders who execute teachers, insurgent leaders who use suicide bombers in markets, drug traffickers who enslave children. We gather intelligence, we identify targets, and, when necessary, we eliminate threats." Mitchell stepped closer to examine a detailed breakdown of insurgent cell structures, complete with photographs and detailed biographical information. "This is better intelligence than our own databases," he said, his voice filled with amazement. "Because we live among the people," Zaria explained. "We speak the languages, we understand the culture, and we have patience that your military cannot afford. We watch for months, sometimes years, before taking action." Rodriguez felt the implications of what she was describing settle over him like a weight. "You're telling me there's a network of 12 teenage girls conducting a coordinated counterinsurgency campaign across 3 provinces?" "Not girls," Zaria corrected, her voice taking on a harder edge. "Soldiers. We have been soldiers since we were old enough to hold our fathers' rifles. The insurgents call us the Ghost Daughters, because we appear from nowhere and strike without warning." Lieutenant Chin's voice crackled through Rodriguez's earpiece again. "Sergeant, I'm cross-referencing regional intelligence reports with what I'm seeing here. The pattern matches unsolved eliminations going back almost 3 years. High-value targets, perfect execution, no witnesses. If she's telling the truth about 12 operators, they've been more effective than any special forces unit in theater." Rodriguez walked to a wall covered with photographs, many showing men in military-style poses. Some of the faces were familiar from intelligence briefings, known insurgent leaders who had simply vanished over the past few years. "These men," he said, pointing to several photographs marked with red X's. "They're all confirmed dead?" "Confirmed eliminated," Zaria replied. "Each one was responsible for attacks on civilians, for recruiting children as suicide bombers, for trafficking drugs or weapons. Each one received multiple warnings to cease their activities before action was taken." She moved to a filing cabinet and withdrew a thick folder, placing it on the table before Rodriguez. "This contains detailed intelligence on current threats in your area of operations. Locations, personnel, planned attacks, supply routes. Everything your intelligence officers have been trying to discover for months." Rodriguez opened the folder and felt his breath catch. The first page contained a detailed schematic of an insurgent bomb-making facility less than 10 kilometers from their forward operating base. The intelligence was fresh, dated only 3 days earlier, and included information about planned attacks on coalition supply convoys. "Why are you sharing this with us now?" he asked. "You've been operating independently for years. What's changed?" Zaria's expression grew serious. Because something new has entered our region. A group we cannot handle alone. They are not local insurgents or Taliban fighters. They are foreign, well-funded, and extremely dangerous. They have been recruiting local fighters and supplying them with weapons we have never seen before. She flipped to another section of the folder, revealing photographs of weapons caches that made Rodriguez's blood run cold. Advanced explosives, sophisticated communication equipment, and what appeared to be chemical warfare materials were clearly visible in the surveillance photos. 3 weeks ago, they captured one of my sisters, Zaria continued, her voice betraying emotion for the first time. Amara was conducting reconnaissance on a suspected weapons depot when they detected her presence. We have been unable to locate where they took her. Rodriguez studied the photographs more carefully. The equipment in the images was military-grade, far beyond what typical insurgent groups could acquire. The organized nature of the depot suggested a level of professional planning that indicated state-level support. Do you have any intelligence on who these people are? Mitchell asked, leaning over Rodriguez's shoulder to examine the images. We believe they are connected to foreign intelligence services, Zaria replied. Possibly Iranian, though we cannot be certain. They speak Farsi among themselves, but their leaders appear to be Arab. What we know for certain is that they are planning something much larger than typical insurgent attacks. She pointed to a particular photograph showing what appeared to be chemical storage containers. Our surveillance indicates they are preparing for an attack that will involve these materials. We believe the target is either your main base or one of the nearby population centers. Rodriguez felt the situation taking on a completely different dimension. If Zaria was correct about foreign-backed chemical weapons being prepared for use in their area of operations, it represented a threat level far beyond anything they had been briefed to expect. We need to verify this intelligence, he said, though part of him already believed what she was telling them. The professionalism of her operation, the quality of her equipment, and the accuracy of everything he had witnessed suggested that her information would prove reliable. Time is limited, Zaria warned. Our intelligence indicates the attack is planned for within the next 2 weeks. My sisters and I can provide detailed surveillance and potentially infiltrate their operation, but we cannot stop this alone. We need the cooperation of your military forces. Rodriguez looked around the room once more, taking in the sophisticated operation that this remarkable young woman had revealed to them. Everything about the situation challenged his assumptions about the conflict, about their enemies, and about their allies. What do you want from us? He asked directly. Help us rescue Amara, Zaria replied without hesitation. And allow us to coordinate our intelligence gathering with your forces to stop what is coming. In return, we will provide you with intelligence that will save American lives and help protect the innocent people caught in the middle of this war. Back at the forward operating base, Rodriguez found himself in the uncomfortable position of briefing his commanding officer on a situation that sounded like something from a Hollywood action movie. Colonel James Harrison had served 4 tours in Iraq and 2 in Afghanistan, but even his extensive experience hadn't prepared him for the report Rodriguez was delivering. Let me understand this correctly, Sergeant, Harrison said, studying the intelligence folder Zaria had provided. You're telling me that 12 teenage girls have been conducting precision sniper operations across 3 provinces for the better part of 3 years, and we've had no idea they existed? Sir, the evidence is overwhelming, Rodriguez replied, spreading out photographs and documents across the colonel's desk. The quality of their intelligence, the sophistication of their equipment, the accuracy of their targeting data, it all checks out. Lieutenant Chun has been cross-referencing their information with our own databases, and the correlation is nearly perfect. Lieutenant Chun stepped forward with her tablet, displaying a series of satellite images and intelligence reports. Colonel, I've identified at least 18 high-value target eliminations that match their operational signature. Each incident involved single-shot kills at extreme range, 0 collateral damage, and targets who were confirmed threats to civilian populations. Harrison examined the satellite imagery showing the compound where they had met Zaria. Even from orbit, the sophistication of the installation was evident. Solar power arrays, sophisticated communication equipment, and what appeared to be a well-organized logistics operation. And they claim there's a new threat in the region? Harrison asked, focusing on the photographs of advanced weapons caches. Sir, if their intelligence is accurate, we're looking at a potential chemical weapons attack within the next 2 weeks, Rodriguez said grimly. The materials they've documented exceed anything we've seen from local insurgent groups. This suggests foreign state sponsorship and a level of threat that goes far beyond our current security posture. Harrison stood and walked to the large operational map that dominated one wall of his office. Red pins marked known insurgent activity, blue pins showed coalition positions, and yellow pins indicated civilian population centers. If chemical weapons were deployed against any of those targets, the casualties could number in the thousands. What do they want from us? He asked finally. Immediate assistance in locating and rescuing their captured operative, Rodriguez replied. They believe she's being held at the facility where the chemical weapons are being prepared. They're proposing a joint operation, their intelligence and infiltration capabilities combined with our military assets. Absolutely not, Harrison said immediately. I'm not putting American soldiers at risk based on intelligence from unknown operatives, regardless of how impressive their track record might be. We don't know their true loyalties, their ultimate objectives, or whether this entire situation is an elaborate setup. Rodriguez had expected this response, but the urgency in Zaria's voice when she spoke about her captured sister had convinced him that the threat was genuine. Sir, they've offered to provide real-time intelligence on insurgent activities throughout the region. The tactical advantage could be enormous. Or it could be a trap designed to compromise our entire operation, Harrison countered. Sergeant, I appreciate the quality of the intelligence they've provided, but working with unauthorized operatives violates every protocol we have. The risk assessment alone would take weeks to complete. Lieutenant Chen cleared her throat diplomatically. Sir, if I may suggest a compromise, we could verify their claims about the chemical weapons facility through independent reconnaissance. If their intelligence proves accurate, it would support their credibility and justify further cooperation. Harrison considered this suggestion, studying the tactical maps and threat assessments. The location Zaria had identified was in a remote mountain valley that coalition forces had never thoroughly investigated. A reconnaissance mission could confirm or refute their claims without requiring any formal cooperation agreement. Very well, he decided. I'm authorizing a limited reconnaissance operation to verify the existence of this alleged weapons facility. But make it clear to your contacts that any formal cooperation will require approval from much higher up the chain of command. Rodriguez nodded, but privately he doubted that military bureaucracy would move fast enough to address the timeline Zaria had described. If the attack was planned for within 2 weeks, decisions would need to be made quickly. Sir, there's one more thing, he said carefully. They've indicated that their captured operative has intelligence about the planned attack that could be crucial to preventing it. Every day we delay increases the risk that the information becomes irrelevant. Harrison's expression showed the weight of command responsibility. The decision to trust unknown operatives could result in American casualties, but ignoring a potential chemical weapons threat could result in massive civilian casualties and a significant strategic setback. Prep a reconnaissance team, he ordered finally. But I want this done by the book. Full surveillance, no direct contact with unknown operatives, and immediate extraction if the situation becomes compromised. We verify their intelligence first, then we decide on next steps. As Rodriguez prepared to leave, his radio crackled with an urgent transmission from the perimeter guards. Base, this is Tower 2. We have an unknown individual approaching the main gate. Single person, female, requesting to speak with Sergeant Rodriguez. Rodriguez and Harrison exchanged glances. Description? Rodriguez asked into his radio. Appears to be a local female, mid-teens, carrying what looks like a sniper rifle. She says her name is Zaria and that you're expecting her. Harrison raised an eyebrow. Your new friend doesn't waste time, does she? Rodriguez keyed his radio. Escort her to the briefing room, but maintain security protocol. Full search and weapons retention. 10 minutes later, Rodriguez found himself face-to-face with Zaria again, this time in the sterile environment of the base briefing room. She had submitted to the security search without complaint, though he noticed that the guards had required a separate table just for the equipment she had been carrying. I bring urgent news, she said without preamble. Our surveillance has detected increased activity at the chemical weapons facility. They are accelerating their timeline. We believe the attack is now planned for within 1 week, possibly sooner. She placed a small digital camera on the table and activated its display screen. The images showed the same facility from her previous intelligence reports, but now with significantly more activity. Vehicles, personnel, and what appeared to be preparation activities for transport of materials. How current are these images? Rodriguez asked. 6 hours old. My sister Kira infiltrated close enough to document their preparations. They are loading chemical containers into transport vehicles and conducting what appears to be final coordination meetings. Rodriguez studied the images, noting details that confirmed the urgency of the situation. If these photographs were genuine, they were looking at final preparations for a major chemical attack within days, not weeks. There's more, Zaria continued, activating another series of images. We have identified the target. Our surveillance indicates they are planning to attack the regional capital during the weekly market day. 15,000 innocent civilians will be in the target area. The implications hit Rodriguez like a physical blow. A chemical weapons attack on a crowded market would result in casualties on a scale that would fundamentally change the nature of the conflict. International intervention would be inevitable, and the regional instability could spread across multiple countries. We need to move immediately, Zaria said, her calm demeanor cracking slightly to reveal the urgency she felt. Every hour of delay increases the risk that Amara will be moved to a different location, and every hour brings the attack closer to execution. Rodriguez realized that the careful military planning process Harrison had described was a luxury they no longer possessed. The situation had moved beyond the scope of routine intelligence verification into the realm of immediate threat response. What are you proposing? He asked. A joint rescue and interdiction operation, Zaria replied without hesitation. My sisters can provide infiltration and surveillance capabilities your forces cannot match. Your military assets can provide the firepower and logistics support we need to neutralize the facility and rescue Amara before the chemical materials can be deployed. Rodriguez looked at the photographs again, weighing the risks of action against the risks of inaction. Military protocol demanded extensive planning and authorization, but the timeline they were facing made such careful preparation impossible. I need to brief my commanding officer, he said finally. But I have to warn you that approval for this kind of joint operation will be extremely difficult to obtain through normal channels. Zaria's expression remained determined. Then, we must find channels that are not normal, she said simply. Because if we fail, thousands of innocent people will die, and the responsibility will belong to all of us. The emergency briefing room buzzed with tension as Colonel Harrison studied the latest intelligence photographs. The timeline had collapsed from weeks to hours. Satellite confirmation had verified the existence of the chemical weapons facility, and signals intelligence had intercepted communications indicating an imminent attack on the regional capital. The situation has evolved beyond our normal operational parameters, Harrison announced to the assembled team. Washington has been briefed, and we have authorization for immediate intervention. However, the timeline requires unconventional cooperation. Rodriguez felt a mixture of relief and apprehension. Authorization for the operation meant they could act, but the risks remained enormous. Working with Zaria's network violated every standard protocol, but the alternative was allowing a chemical weapons attack that could kill thousands. Sir, Lieutenant Chun interjected, we've received additional intelligence that confirms the urgency. The facility is being evacuated as we speak. If we don't move within the next 6 hours, both the weapons and the personnel will be gone. Harrison nodded grimly. Which brings us to our unconventional allies. Sergeant Rodriguez, what's your assessment of their operational capabilities? Sir, their intelligence gathering has been flawless, their equipment is professional grade, and their knowledge of local terrain is unmatched, Rodriguez replied. However, we're still dealing with civilians, regardless of their training level. At that moment, the briefing room door opened, and Zaria entered with 2 other young women. Both appeared to be in their late teens, but carried themselves with the same professional confidence that Rodriguez had observed in Zaria. They wore tactical gear that would have been at home in any Special Forces unit. "Colonel Harrison," Zaria said with formal military bearing, "may I present my sisters Kira and Fatima?" Kira provided the recent surveillance photographs. Fatima specializes in explosive ordnance disposal and will be essential for safely securing the chemical materials. Harrison studied the three young women, noting the professionalism of their presentation and the quality of their equipment. Everything about their demeanor suggested extensive military training, despite their apparent age. "What are you proposing for the operational plan?" he asked directly. Zaria moved to the large tactical map and began marking positions with practiced precision. The facility is located in a narrow valley with limited access routes. Direct assault would be detected well in advance and would likely result in the destruction of evidence and the execution of any prisoners. She traced a route along the mountain ridges surrounding the target area. However, infiltration from elevated positions is possible. "My sisters and I can establish overwatch positions and provide detailed reconnaissance while your forces approach from the primary access routes." "And the rescue of your captured operative?" Rodriguez asked. "Amara is being held in the main compound building." Kira spoke for the first time, her English carrying a slight accent, but demonstrating clear technical knowledge. "Our surveillance indicates she is alive, but being interrogated. The facility is too well defended for a small team rescue, but during a larger assault, we can extract her." Fatima stepped forward with a detailed floor plan of the chemical storage facility. "The immediate concern is preventing the chemical materials from being deployed either as an attack or as a scorched earth tactic if the facility is compromised. The storage containers are rigged with explosive charges that could disperse the chemicals if detonated." Harrison examined the floor plan, noting the sophisticated understanding of the facility's layout and security measures. The level of detail suggested extensive surveillance over a considerable period of time. "How many personnel are we expecting to encounter?" he asked. 32 hostile combatants as of our last count," Zaria replied immediately. 12 are foreign operatives with advanced training, 20 are local recruits with basic combat skills. They are well armed, but not prepared for a coordinated assault from multiple directions. Rodriguez studied the tactical situation, recognizing that the combination of military firepower and local intelligence could indeed be effective. The Ghost Daughter's knowledge of terrain and enemy positions would provide advantages that conventional reconnaissance could not match. "Timeline for the operation?" Harrison asked. "We must move within 4 hours," Zaria said firmly. "Our surveillance indicates final preparations are underway. If we miss this window, the chemical materials will be dispersed to multiple locations, making interdiction nearly impossible." Harrison made his decision with the quick judgment that had characterized his entire military career. "Authorization is granted for a joint operation. However, I want it clearly understood that American military personnel retain operational command, and any deviation from agreed protocols will result in immediate mission termination." "Understood, Colonel," Zaria replied with military precision. "Our objective is the same as yours, preventing the chemical attack and protecting innocent lives." The next 3 hours became a blur of preparation and coordination. Rodriguez found himself working closely with Zaria to integrate their operational capabilities with conventional military assets. Her knowledge of the terrain and enemy positions proved invaluable for planning approach routes and establishing firing positions. "Your father trained you well," Rodriguez observed as they finalized the assault plan. "He taught us that true strength comes from protecting those who cannot protect themselves," Zaria replied. "These insurgents threaten innocent people, so they must be stopped." As darkness fell over the mountains, 2 helicopters lifted off from the forward operating base, carrying a joint force unlike anything Rodriguez had ever been part of. Conventional Rangers worked alongside the Ghost Daughters, their tactical expertise complementing local knowledge in ways that promised to be devastatingly effective. The facility appeared in their night vision equipment exactly as Zaria's intelligence had described. Thermal imaging confirmed the positions of sentries and the layout of buildings. Everything matched the detailed surveillance reports that had been provided. Ghost Daughter 1 in position. Zaria's voice came through the communications system as she and her sisters established overwatch positions on the surrounding ridges. Alpha Team moving to primary objective, Rodriguez responded, leading his squad toward the chemical storage building. The assault unfolded with precision that exceeded even optimistic expectations. The Ghost Daughters' intelligence proved flawless. Their sniper fire eliminated key sentries at critical moments, and their knowledge of the facility layout guided the Rangers through the complex with minimal resistance. Rodriguez found Amara in exactly the location Kira had specified, injured but alive and able to provide crucial intelligence about the planned attack timing. Fatima successfully secured the chemical storage containers, preventing any possibility of dispersal during the assault. By dawn, the facility had been completely secured. 32 hostile combatants were either captured or eliminated, and enough chemical weapons materials to devastate a city had been safely contained for disposal. Mission accomplished, Rodriguez reported as the joint force prepared for extraction. All objectives secured, all personnel accounted for. Colonel Harrison's response came through clearly over the communication system. Outstanding work, all teams. This operation prevented a catastrophic terrorist attack and demonstrated the value of unconventional cooperation. As the helicopters prepared for departure, Rodriguez found himself standing beside Zaria as she looked out over the mountain valley where they had just prevented a tragedy of enormous proportions. "What happens now?" he asked. "We continue our mission," she replied simply. "There are other threats, other innocents who need protection. The war is not over." Rodriguez nodded, understanding that he had witnessed something remarkable. Young women who had taken the skills their fathers taught them for survival and transformed them into tools for protecting their communities. The Ghost Daughters would continue their vigilant watch over the mountains, ready to eliminate threats that conventional forces might never detect. "If you ever need support again," he said, "you know how to contact us." Zaria smiled, the expression transforming her from a deadly sniper back into a teenager for just a moment. "We will remember, Sergeant, and we will continue to protect those who cannot protect themselves." As the helicopters disappeared into the morning sky, the mountains returned to their eternal silence. But Rodriguez knew that silence was deceptive. Somewhere in those peaks, the Ghost Daughters maintained their watch, ready to strike with lethal precision against any who would threaten the innocent. The Rangers had called out asking if that was a teenager shooting, only to discover that she and her sisters were among the most effective counterinsurgency operatives in the entire theater of operations. Sometimes the most unexpected allies proved to be the most valuable.